Hey everyone, we are taking a look at a bunch of different models that show blood vessels in some way, shape, or form. What I'm going to discuss here are what are the different blood vessels that you find in different parts of the body. What are basically the categories of blood vessels? The first major category of blood vessel is an artery. An artery is anything that delivers blood away from the heart. So this blood vessel here, this is the aorta, largest artery. This is also an artery. This is the pulmonary trunk. Now we don't normally think of arteries as carrying deoxygenated blood, but this one does. It's not about, arteries aren't defined by what kind of blood they carry. Arteries are defined by which direction they carry it. So pulmonary trunk and aorta are the largest arteries, and everything in systemic circulation shown here is red. Those are arteries. Veins return blood to the heart. So your largest veins are the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava. You've also got, here in red, you've also got pulmonary veins that return blood to the left atrium. Again, it's not about the type of blood, it's about the direction. Veins return blood to the heart. You've also got capillaries. To see capillaries, let's take a look at this model here. So this is supposed to represent very small branched capillary beds. You can see more capillaries on this larger blood vessel, more capillaries over here. Even on this lung lobule model, you can see surrounding each one of these round alveoli, those are branching capillaries. Capillaries are for gas exchange. Gas exchange in the lungs, but also for nutrient and waste exchange in any other part of the body. So this model here is representing the intestines, the villi of the intestines, and you've got capillaries found inside of those villi for absorbing nutrients in that case. So those are the three basic types, but we can break that down even further. Arteries can be broken down into three types. The largest arteries, the aorta and pulmonary trunk, those are elastic arteries. Elastic arteries are named that because they have a higher percentage of elastic tissue in them, and they can expand. Especially the aorta, but also the pulmonary trunk, they need to be able to expand because they're receiving lots of force generated from the ventricles. We don't want these to be damaged, so they need to expand to not get damaged. They kind of roll with that pressure. So aorta, pulmonary trunk, those are elastic arteries. Most of these major arteries you see going to other parts of the body, these are muscular arteries. All arteries have muscle, smooth muscle, but proportionately they have more muscle to their thickness. So most of the systemic arteries, the ones that we name like femoral artery or radial and ulnar arteries, those are muscular arteries. The next, or the smallest of arteries, which I suppose could be exemplified as the ones branching to capillaries, those are known as arterioles. Arterioles are blood vessels that are very, very small. They have a little bit of muscle, so they can change size. So it would be these ones leading into the capillaries. They're very, very small, very branched, and they can change size because they do have some muscle, but they're still very, very small, leading into the capillary bed. Arterioles. With capillaries, there are three types of capillaries. In most of the body, we find, like here in the lungs, in most of the body we find continuous capillaries. Continuous capillaries, the endothelium, the simple squamous, are linked together pretty tightly, so there's very minimal leakage into the interstitial fluid. Continuous capillaries found most of the body. In places like our intestines and in the kidney, this is representing the Bowman's capsule of the kidney. The Bowman's capsules are found, we'll get to this later, but they're found in the cortex. You see those round, let me use my other hand, out here in the cortex of the kidney, you find something called Bowman's capsules, and they close up look like this. These capillaries are fenestrated. Fenestrated means they have tiny little holes where it's easier for fluids and anything dissolved in it to leak out. So fenestrated capillaries found in places like the kidney and in the intestines, they allow for either, they have slightly larger holes, more pores so that things can go in or out. In the case of the digestive tract, you obviously want to absorb nutrients. In the case of the kidney, you want to be able to filter stuff out from your blood. The third type of capillary that you can find, which you can find in places like the liver, this is a close-up of the liver, and this is the spleen over here. The stomach would be right here. Here's the pancreas, intestines. Places like the liver, spleen, and also endocrine glands, like, say, the thyroid or the, let me get in here, the adrenal gland, it's hiding in there somewhere. Places like that, you have what's called sinusoid capillaries. Actually, excuse me, endocrine glands have fenestrated capillaries. Places like your bone marrow, spleen, and liver, places like bone marrow, liver, and spleen have sinusoid capillaries. And so we're zooming in this model, we're zooming in on just a small piece here. And you can see that these are very large blood vessels with an incomplete basement membrane and large spacing between the endothelium. So it's easier for things to go in and out. Why would we need that in the liver? With the liver, it does a lot of digestive functions and also helps detoxify things. So by having a larger open space, we can take nutrients out, store nutrients for later, remove wastes and detoxify them, and add proteins as well. Liver does a lot. The spleen, why does it need sinusoid capillaries? The spleen is there to destroy old red blood cells, and so by having larger open capillaries, you can take cells in. Fenestrated capillaries, despite having holes, pores, larger holes, they're not too large that they let cells in. Only sinusoids let cells in. Like, for instance, you don't want to see blood cells in your urine. That'd be a bad thing. That would indicate kidney damage. But you can have blood cells enter the spleen. So these have sinusoid capillaries. The bone marrow also has sinusoid capillaries, which I guess I can point out over here. Like, here's the proximal epiphysis of the femur. Bone marrow has sinusoid capillaries because that's where blood cells are born, red blood cells, white blood cells, and you need that to exit from the bone marrow into the bloodstream. Red bone marrow, spleen, liver, where you find sinusoid capillaries. All right. After capillaries comes veins, and there are three types of veins. The first type of vein, it's kind of the counterpart of the arteriole. This is a venule. Honestly, nothing too fancy about it. It's just small branches on their way back to regular-sized veins. We go from venules to medium-sized veins. Not very creative, but medium-sized veins are the ones that you find most throughout the systemic circulation. The ones that have names, like the great saphenous or the femoral vein. They're medium-sized, and they have valves. This model here is showing a medium-sized vein over here and a medium-sized vein over here. These are representing valves. And valves are necessary because blood pressure in veins is much lower than in arteries. Arteries get the benefit of being close to the heart, and so you got blood flowing at a decent pace. But if we're going to return blood back to the heart, we need to, go against gravity and have some pressure. This ensures that it minimizes backflow of blood. As soon as blood passes from here to this next section, it can't go back. These valves prevent that from happening. If you have varicose veins, that means there's damage to one of the valves, and that can lead to some backflow of blood, which probably not the best. Right, medium-sized veins. Large-sized veins, inferior vena cava, superior vena cava, very, very large, lots of fibrous tissue to reinforce it. One thing that both the vena cava, the large-sized veins, and the elastic arteries have in common is that they are so large that they require their own capillaries. If this is representing, say, the aorta, and this is representing a vena cava, they have blood vessels within them, capillaries within them, to supply the muscle that it's towards the outside. That's called, wow, I'm blanking. That's called vasovassorum. There we go. It's called vasovassorum. Vasovassorum are the capillaries that supply the largest of blood vessels, the elastic arteries and the large size veins. All right? Once again, altogether 9 categories of blood vessels. Elastic arteries, muscular arteries, arterioles, continuous capillaries, fenestrated capillaries, sinusoid capillaries, venules, medium-sized veins, large-sized veins. I hope that helps. Please let me know if you have any questions. Take care.